We found a backpack identical to mine, down to the items inside. At first, it seemed like a joke the forest was playing on our tired eyes. The trail had disappeared hours earlier, swallowed by undergrowth and old leaf fall. Moss blurred the edges of everything. Fallen trunks had rotted into soft ridges that looked like paths until you stepped on them and your boots sank into pulp. Even the light felt wrong. The canopy was so dense that daylight filtered down in thin green threads. It gave the impression that the forest was underwater and we were walking along its floor, moving slowly through a thick silence that absorbed every sound we made. No birds, no insects, just the soft tearing of branches when we pushed past them. "Did we pass this clearing before?" Mara asked. I looked around. A crooked birch leaned over a low ring of stones. Ferns filled the middle like green foam. "Maybe," I said. The truth was that every place looked like somewhere we had already been. The forest repeated itself with subtle differences. A log lying where a stump should be, a cluster of mushrooms where there had been bare soil before. It felt less like wandering and more like moving through variations of the same place. That was when I saw the backpack. It rested beside a fallen tree, half hidden in moss. Black nylon, 2 outer pockets. The left strap frayed near the buckle where I had burned it months ago trying to cauterize a loose thread with a lighter. For a moment I thought I had dropped mine without noticing. Then I felt the weight still on my shoulders. "Hold on," I said. Mara stopped. I stepped closer. The pack sat upright as if someone had just set it down and walked away. I touched it. The fabric was damp with the forest's cold breath. The smell of wet nylon rose from it. Exactly the same smell as my own pack after rain. My hands moved automatically. Unzip. Inside, the rolled rain jacket. The same brand. Same dull red stain near the cuff from tomato soup spilled during last winter's hike. Under it, the metal water bottle, dented on one side. My stomach tightened. I opened the side pouch. Granola bars. 2 missing from the 6-pack. Exactly the same as mine. "Whose is it?" Mara asked behind me. "I don't know, but I already did." I opened the smallest pocket, the one I never told anyone about. Inside was the folded photograph of my sister at age 10. Her hair blown across her face at the beach. I kept it tucked behind the seam where the lining sagged slightly. Even the crease in the corner was identical. Mara stepped beside me. Her breath was shallow. "Is that your picture?" "Yes. But your bag." "I know." We turned slowly to look at the one still on my shoulders. Same frayed strap. Same faded patch sewn near the zipper. For a long moment neither of us spoke. The forest felt heavier around us, as though the trees had leaned closer to listen. Mara said quietly, "Maybe someone else dropped it. With the same photo? Maybe they found your stuff earlier and copied it." "Copied how?" She didn't answer. I lifted the second pack. It weighed exactly the same. When I slung it over my shoulder beside the first, the balance felt disturbingly natural, as if I had carried both before. We decided to keep moving. Leaving it there felt wrong. The deeper we went, the stranger the forest became. Landmarks shifted. A moss-covered boulder we had passed earlier appeared again an hour later on the opposite side of a ravine. The air smelled of damp bark and something older, like cloth left too long in a sealed trunk. Every so often I felt a sensation that made my skin crawl. The feeling of being watched. Not by something moving, but by the forest itself. At dusk we stopped to rest. I opened both backpacks side by side on the ground. Their contents matched perfectly. Same pocket knife. Same compass. Same notebook filled with my cramped handwriting. Even the mistakes. The half-erased grocery list on the back page. The page where I had scribbled directions to the trailhead. Mara picked up one of the notebooks and flipped through it. Her forehead creased. "This page," she said slowly. "What about it?" "It's tomorrow's date." I leaned closer. She was right. The entry described a path turning north around a fallen cedar. Path we hadn't taken yet. The handwriting was mine, but I had no memory of writing it. "Maybe you wrote it earlier," Mara said. "I didn't." The forest shifted softly in the windless dark. Something creaked far away, branches rubbing together like quiet speech. That night, sleep came in fragments. Each time I woke, the forest seemed slightly rearranged. A tree where there hadn't been one. A hollow where the ground had been flat. And once, I heard footsteps matching my breathing exactly. Not beside the tent. Inside the woods. Practicing. Morning came gray and cold. When I opened my pack to check the map, I found something new. A folded page tucked between the others. More handwriting. Mine again. The entry described the moment we would find the second backpack. It described the way Mara would stare at the photograph. The way I would hesitate before touching the zipper. Everything. Word for word. My throat tightened. How could it know? Mara whispered. I looked into the forest. Something moved among the trunks. Not a body, but a suggestion of shape, like branches bending in patterns that resembled a human outline. Then it was gone. That afternoon we found another clearing. And in the center of it, another backpack. Mine. Same wear. Same contents. Except for one difference. Inside the notebook was a final entry. The handwriting looked fresher than the others. Still slightly indented into the page. As if it had been written minutes ago. I read it slowly while Mara watched my face pale. What does it say? She asked. I swallowed. It says the forest has almost learned enough. Her voice trembled. Learned what? I closed the notebook. Me. We heard something then. A rustle in the trees behind us. Footsteps. Measured. Familiar. And when I turned, I saw movement between the trunks. A figure stepping forward. Carrying a backpack identical to mine. Wearing my jacket. Walking with my stride. Its face was still unfinished, features soft and shifting like bark underwater, but its hands moved with perfect certainty as it reached for the zipper. As if rehearsing the moment I would open it. As if the forest had already written the next entry. And was waiting for me to become the earlier version of myself that had left the first backpack behind. Something whispered instructions in a language we somehow understood. The first time it happened, we thought it was the wind. The forest was old, older than the trail maps suggested, older than the state boundary lines that pretended to define it. The trees grew thick and tall, their bark blackened with centuries of moss. Roots folded across the ground like knotted veins, forcing us to step carefully as we followed what used to be a trail. At least we assumed it had been one. Now it was only a suggestion in the grass. A flattened corridor through ferns and low branches. No markers. No footprints. Just a direction we kept walking because turning around felt strangely difficult, like trying to remember a dream already fading. The air had a texture to it. Not wind, something denser. Damp and cool, pressing gently against the skin. When I breathed in, the air felt thick enough to swallow. Marcus stopped ahead of me. Did you hear that? The forest held its breath. Silence pressed against us from every direction. Not the comfortable quiet of woods far from the city, but a deeper stillness that seemed to absorb sound before it fully formed. No, I said. Marcus tilted his head. I swear something just. Then I heard it. Not a voice, more like the idea of one. A whisper brushing across the inside of my mind. Left. The word didn't come through my ears. It appeared behind my eyes, fully formed and perfectly clear. I turned instinctively. The ground sloped gently left through a break in the undergrowth. Marcus looked at me. You heard it too, didn't you? What did it say? Left. The silence deepened, as if waiting for us to move. We looked at each other. Then Marcus shrugged uneasily and stepped in that direction. I followed. The whisper returned a few minutes later. Careful. My foot paused mid-step. A root protruded from the soil exactly where my boot would have landed. I stepped over it. Marcus glanced back. Did it warn you? Yes. The words felt strange in my mouth. The forest stretched around us in layers of green shadow. Thick vines hung between trunks like unmoving ropes. Moss coated everything, swallowing the sharp edges of bark and stone. But what unsettled me most was the way the whisper felt. Not external, internal. The meaning appeared instantly without translation. Yet the sound itself, if it could be called sound, was something unfamiliar. The shape of the language moved through my thoughts like a pattern I had always known but never spoken. We walked for another hour. The whisper guided us in small ways. Step over. Not that path. Wait. Each instruction was brief, precise, and somehow undeniable. Marcus eventually laughed nervously. Okay, he said. This is officially weird. You're still listening to it. Yeah, because it keeps being right. The forest thickened. Branches knitted together above us until the sky vanished completely. The light dimmed to a muted green glow, like the interior of deep water. That was when the whisper changed. It grew longer, more complicated. Not just instructions, but patterns of sound that curled through the mind like smoke. I didn't hear words. I felt meanings unfolding. Follow the hollow tree. Marcus slowed. You understand that too? I nodded. A massive oak stood ahead. Its trunk split open into a dark cavity. The interior smelled of damp rot and something sweet, like crushed leaves left to ferment. We passed it. The whisper brushed my mind again. Good. A pulse of something like satisfaction moved through my chest. I froze. Did you feel that? I asked. Marcus's expression had gone pale. Yeah. What was it? He shook his head slowly. Approval. The forest watched us. I was certain of it now. Not through eyes. Through attention. Every step we took felt observed, evaluated, tested. As evening approached, the whispers became more frequent. They threaded together into strange fragments of language that carried complex meaning all at once. Some of it was instruction. Some of it felt like correction. When I thought about turning back, the whisper slid gently across my thoughts. No. The word carried an emotional weight that made the idea feel suddenly absurd. Marcus stopped walking. Have you noticed something? He said quietly. What? I can't remember the trailhead. I tried to picture it. The parking lot. The map board. The wooden sign. The memory flickered weakly, then dissolved. A faint whisper moved through my mind again. Irrelevant. My heart started pounding. Marcus, I said slowly. I think it's changing how we think. He stared into the trees. Or teaching us how to think differently. The forest shifted subtly around us. Branches creaked without wind. Leaves trembled along invisible currents. And beneath it all, the whisper continued. Listen, learn, repeat. We walked until the last of the daylight vanished. In the darkness, the whispers multiplied. Dozens of them. Hundreds. Soft threads of language weaving through our minds. None of them sounded human, yet every one carried perfect clarity. Observe the root pattern. Understand the soil. Follow the curvature of water. Marcus gripped his head. There's too many. I felt it too. The meanings poured into my thoughts faster now. Structures. Relationships. The way moisture moved beneath the ground. The way fungi carried signals between trees. An entire system unfolding inside my mind. Not information. Perspective. The forest wasn't speaking. It was teaching. Rewiring. Marcus suddenly whispered, Why do I know what the trees are thinking? I didn't answer. Because I knew it too. The roots beneath our feet formed a network. An immense living structure stretching miles in every direction. A mind. Slow. Patient. Ancient. And the whispers were not instructions for survival. They were instructions for translation. The forest was teaching us its language so we could understand its thoughts. Marcus staggered. What happens when we learn it completely? The whisper answered. Not one voice, many, layered together in a sound that filled my skull like rising water. Then you will speak for us. The ground trembled slightly. I felt something move beneath the soil. Not an animal. Something vast shifting through the root network. Marcus looked at me with sudden horror. I can't remember my mother's face. I tried to recall my own name. The whisper pressed gently against the fading memory. Unnecessary. The meanings inside my mind were changing shape. Human language felt clumsy now. Small. The forest's thoughts flowed wider, deeper. I understood the soil's hunger, the patience of roots breaking stone, the slow conversations between trees. Marcus's voice cracked. What are we becoming? I looked into the darkness where the trunks rose like pillars, and I understood the final instruction. Stand still. Listen. Grow quiet. The forest did not want our bodies. It wanted our understanding. Our minds had learned enough of its language to carry it beyond the trees, to speak it elsewhere, to plant its thoughts inside other minds. Marcus sank slowly to his knees. The whispers softened. Satisfied, I tried to remember the sound of my own voice before this place. But the forest's language had filled that space completely. And somewhere beneath the soil, deep within the root network, something vast and patient whispered the final instruction. Not to us, through us, teach the others.